Broadcasting from Great Gate Studios, it's time for Connected with Laurie. Tune in every other Wednesday to learn about the future innovation of technology and advanced tech trends. Here is your host, Laurie Caruso.
Hello and welcome to Connected with Laurie. I am your host, Laurie Caruso. On our show, we highlight the future innovations of technology. And I'm excited to do just that in this episode. We are going to hear from a true expert and leader in the commercial real estate space. I'd like to welcome my guest, CEO of Boxer Properties and co-founder of Stemmons Enterprise, Mr. Andrew Segal. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you on the show. So I got to say though, and I know this is audio, but it's also visual. I see like amazing warm weather behind you. Where are you?
I'm on a boat in the Florida Keys today.
There's that. So
Yep.
I'm excited to see this because I'm in New Hampshire and it's snowing out.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's snowing. So it's freezing too. So I'm actually on my way to the Keys as well. So I will see you hopefully there. So Andrew, tell me a little bit about Boxer Properties. I know you started Boxer Properties in 1992? Give us a little insight as to what you do at Boxer Properties.
Sure. So Boxer, I started with my brother Justin in 1992, and we decided to build a platform for chasing distressed office buildings and then eventually resorts and malls. As well, we started in Texas because we felt there was a lot of opportunity, but used that as a jumping off base to go around the country. One of the key innovations we did at Boxer was to incorporate co-working into the management fabric of the company. And we ended up with one of the, or the way I like to put it is the way the JLL kindly did, is we're the largest stable co-working company in the United States now. So Boxer tends to buy things when there's trouble, sell things when there's not. We're currently own about 16 million square feet, and we manage for third parties another couple of million square feet.
So it's interesting that you said that too, as far as, going in and buying when, there were challenging times. We're certainly in a challenging time right now. And with this pandemic, with COVID, how are you guys moving? How are you taking care of what you need to with business to be successful?
So we actually use systems to deal with continuity. So we think of disruption in a very abstract way. Is it really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter whether it's a storm or an earthquake or a fire or a power outage or civil unrest or coronavirus. It's, you deal with it kind of in the same way. And what we found is that using technology made us largely immune, not totally immune, but largely immune to the disease. And the disease affects businesses the same way that it affects people. Some people are just asymptomatic, so are some businesses. Some people get it, they get over it, and then they're back to business. Other people, it just kills them, and really the same for business. So what we found is that with an electronic platform, a bunch of systems being ready for disruption, that we were able to really return to normal very quickly. And we ended up in our office group, which was a surprise to me, actually building our rent roll got bigger than it was in March. Not totally even, but we've actually gained ground, and we're doing about 275 new commercial leases a month, virtually all online. So I tell people, yes, in this environment, people are spending less, they're doing less, but Amazon is doing more. In other words, they got a bigger share of a smaller pie, and that's where I think we've succeeded.
Yeah, and there's no question. I mean, we hear today, how do we get the comfort back? How do we, allow people to be able to come back into the space that they were used to before the pandemic, to now they feel that there's, challenges to go back in there because it's unknown, right? They don't know if they're going to get sick. They don't know if they're going to get somebody else sick. They don't know. So from that perspective, I'm curious, how do you help your employees and your tenants and everybody else that you're working with? How do you work with them so they feel better about this?
So it's definitely a real problem. I mean, you have to really visibly make sure that things are clean or orderly. You're enforcing the policies. I think the mask turned out to be number one. So that's a given. But I think that you also have to be real. Like I saw I was a member of a panel a week ago where people were talking about reacting to the virus in New York City, and they were saying, okay, we're only going to put 2 people in an elevator, and we've got cameras that make sure you're distant in the lobby, and you have a badge that lights up when you're near anyone. And I just thought, you realize all of these people just took the subway to work?
Right.
Like,
Right.
in other words, the horses have left the stable. It's too late. It's too late for that. So I think we're going to live in a world of masks and being attentive to things. But just like I said before, there's going to be massively different effects of the virus. And I think that it's a longer conversation, but the urban areas are really in trouble. And it may be more about commute rather than COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The commuters they don't want to go back to spending an hour and a half in traffic. And I think that this may be the fulcrum that they need to cut that out. We're kind of excited about that prospect.
Yeah, and I see that too. I mean, even from my perspective, when I used to travel, I was in a plane pretty much every single week, and now I'm spending more time with my family. I understand now how, my house works because I was never here enough to be able to do that. So there definitely are some ways that people are feeling comfortable in their surrounding, and it will be hard for them to now change that back to what it was, so to speak, I would imagine.
I think what's interesting is if you look at our hotels, we have 2 hotels in our portfolio. One is a ski resort in the mountains in Colorado, and the other one is a golf resort in Phoenix that mostly focuses on meetings and events. So it turns out that people will risk their life for vacation. Lots of business at the mountain retreat, virtually crickets at the place. They're not risking their life for a dental convention.
So true. No, there's no question about that. And I see that constantly. With that, so Boxer Properties, talk about how you got into Stemmons. I mean, it sounds like there was pain points there that you wanted to try to fix, and Stemmons came from that.
Yeah, so my brother and I really saw ourselves as process people first and kind of applied to real estate. So it wasn't like, I can't say I love buildings or I'm a big fan of physical spaces. I do, but not that definitely was not what drove me. So we went through this process back in, I guess it was starting in about 2008, where we said, okay, there's going to be a huge opportunity. Remember, the market had crashed in 2007.
Right.
This is going to be big. And we were down to about 250 people, maybe 4 million square feet. So it was kind of like as little as we could be and still have our key enterprise together. And we went searching for the right system. And we did what everyone else did. We tried to tie in a bunch of systems. We tried to take a real estate system. We took Salesforce, which we installed in 2004, before most people even knew what it was. And we tried to make that our operating system. We even got seduced by Bill Gates.
That's always nice.
we thought that SharePoint was going to be the answer. And we realized our heart was broken. Justin had to remove a tattoo with the Microsoft symbol on it. But we ended up just deciding that there was nothing there. And we built a system that operated effectively like an iPhone. So in other words, it covered everything. It incorporated external things. It replaced thousands of things. It was easy, intuitive to learn. And we ran it for 5 years internally before we introduced it to people outside of the company.
Wow. So basically you made sure that when you released it, that it was working properly.
Yes. But what's interesting is it allowed us to do things that had huge effects on the company. One of them was we opened an office in India. And if you're going to take one thing away from this discussion. It's India saves 90 to 95% of the cost. So in this world of work from home, where we're all sure that we can get things done with people in different places, I've got to tell you that WFI, work from India, much more cost effective. It's literally 5 to 10% of the cost, not off the cost. So we put about 250 people in our real estate office in India. They work nights, days, weekends, all around. The sun never sets on our accounting department. And then we opened it up for users of our software who could treat it like a virtual cloud, like a human cloud. They could have an employee who did something for them, but we take care of everything, just like you never go visit your cloud computer, but on the other hand, no one else gets on it. So that was very interesting. We now have somewhere between 50 and 75 human cloud employees who work for other companies in the India office, and it was just a big savings and allowed us to do things a lot quicker.
That's interesting. And, going on your website and doing some research myself, I noticed that it's 150 applications that you actually manage for. So talk to me a little bit about that. What are some of these applications that are actually used today?
Well, so you can track anything, you can do anything. If there's an incident in the building, if you have an interaction with a tenant, if you sign a lease, if you want to do preventative maintenance, if you're preparing a space for construction. So just like your phone, there's an endless amount of things that you could apply it to. And you keep finding more and more things, onboarding an employee, reviewing a contract. All of these things are like little systems within the system. And what's interesting is that our clients and ourselves just keep making new ones. Is that you don't have to go to the App Store. You can just create something. Like we had a thing, we have about 6,000 pieces of art that are in our buildings. So like, where would you keep that? Someone had this great idea. How many places need a piece of art? So we're tracking that as well, art opportunities. It's very interesting. When you have one system, you can really do a lot with it.
Talk about innovation right there. I got to say, you're just creating things on the fly when you have a pain point to make it happen. I love it. So,
Yes.
So with that, addressing from the Stemmons perspective, do you find, I'm sure it's intensive on your cellular phone when you're using it. Everybody's using their cell phones, right, to do a lot of this application work. How do you find it in the buildings when they're using it, when technology doesn't technically work maybe the way it should to be able to have this communication happen? How do you work around that?
Well, it's got to be mobile and interchangeable. So we kind of think of it as one system, but really in real life, you're doing a lot of things on your mobile phone, you're doing things on tablets, you're doing things on your desktop, and you just kind of roll from device to device. The other thing is that if you're tracking, which we do, what everybody is doing and how long it takes for them to do it and how many times they have to touch something, like we have all that data. So we're seeing things that we were unable to see before. Like I can't follow someone around with a clipboard. It's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, is like I will literally change what they're doing by just observing them. But here we have the Heisenberg certainty principle, is that we're tracking all of the data. And what's interesting is you start seeing problems show up in artificial intelligence. Like that's really interesting. That's going to change the way that we work.
And that, without a question, that's what we hear a lot about. And we're going to get back to that after these commercial messages. We'll be right back after this.
Montgomery Technologies specializes in riser management for commercial office buildings. Montgomery's award-winning riser services are provided at no cost to the building and include 24/7/365 access screening, cable management, enhanced tenant services, and liability protection. They manage hundreds of commercial office buildings nationwide and would welcome the opportunity to add their comprehensive suite of services to your building or portfolio. Montgomery encourages you to discover how their no-cost service can generate net new building revenue, reduce CapEx and OpEx, and ensure all cabling is run to building and industry standards. With no cost to the building, there is nothing to lose. Give Montgomery a try and experience the service and support that professional, comprehensive riser management provides.
So Andrew, before the commercial break, we started getting into artificial intelligence and understanding what we're doing with the collected information and where is it going to go in the future? What do we need to know? So I want you to talk a little bit about of artificial intelligence, what you're doing in blockchain management, stuff like that. Give me some insight of what you're doing there.
So the first very important thing is most people don't understand what artificial intelligence actually is they confuse it with Moneyball, where very smart people sit around a table and they decide why something is important and why something is going to lead to some effect. That's not artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is when you take all the data, internal, external, anything that you can find, you send it up to computers that are so sophisticated and so fast. And what they do is they try all sorts of balances and they see what works. Now, the thing that the big leap that we need to take with artificial intelligence is that most people receive the answer in a report, and that's very bad. That's like you're only getting a few % of the value if you just get a report and it tells you, an answer to something about artificial intelligence. What you really want is a task. Like that's where it gets really interesting, is that you pose a question through artificial intelligence, it ends up telling someone to do something, and then it sees what happens and gets smarter. So that's the loop. So we've got to go from report to task, and we have to stop trying to decide what's important, because the truth is our minds are not sophisticated enough to determine why something is important or not. Throw everything in. And the only way to really do that and make it very effective is having a unified system, because then all the data is in one place, it's connected, and you have a task mechanism on the back end.
So, and it is definitely the way of the future. I mean, we need to know, and you hit it. I mean, humans are only capable of doing so much, when then you need to have, computer systems take over, and you need to understand, the mechanism that kicks in when you see something from a human all, time and time again, as you're collecting that information. And, not to put you on the spot, but you also hear the other side too. What are you doing with the information? Are you going to use it against me someday? Should I be scared that this is happening? How do you answer that?
So yes, definitely there are issues with artificial intelligence. One of them is discrimination. In other words, how do you tell a computer not to consider certain things that are apparent? So we have to be careful. We can't use it for everything, nor should we. But really, what it does is it just automates things. Like, could you imagine, a world where you were just shown every commercial possible, without anybody deciding, hey, somebody who's watching the news would be interested in this kind of thing. Someone who's watching a sporting event would be interested in something else. Like, it just becomes a waste of your time. So we don't want to replace humans, and we're not going to degrade them. We're basically promoting them. We used to build the pyramids with people cutting and moving stones. And now we have mechanical things. I'm sure that somewhere someone said, hey, you're going to put all the slaves out of business. This is horrible. But that's not the way that we should look at it. Because we should look at it as freeing up intelligent people to make design decisions, not to make the same kind of repetitive decisions again and again and again.
Yeah, and like you just said, I mean, it's actually helping us, right? Because I don't want to look at advertising for something that I'm not going to use, and then I'm constantly seeing it. I mean, it's bad enough on social media where I see a lot of advertising, but then I'm realizing, wait a minute, I might like those pants that I just saw. Those shoes are really cool. So you're right. I mean, all of what this collected information transpires is it helps us in the long run.
It does. It does. So I think we should be treating artificial intelligence the way that we treat Waze. In other words, you don't have to be an expert in an area to know when the traffic is going to happen and what's the best route and what will get you somewhere the quickest. Is just put the destination in and let the computer do it. You worry about something more important like safety on the road. And that's really the promise of artificial intelligence. I'm very excited about it. We're using it. We have 8,000 commercial tenants. Our system tells us which one is most likely to fail. And that doesn't mean don't do anything. Maybe we need to go talk to them. Maybe we need to think about marketing the space. Maybe we need to find out why they're going to fail. We even use it for our coffee maker. IBM's Watson takes a picture of our coffee machine once a minute. And every once in a while, it tells the receptionist that the coffee maker needs attention. It doesn't know what coffee is. It just is. It's only pattern recognition, which is very cool.
Pattern recognition, there's no question. So I see you on the real estate side, but now I see you doing the technology side, which I love because you're pulling it all together. I'm super curious though. Do you consider yourself a real estate guy in tech or a tech guy in real estate?
So I think it's merging. It's like saying, is Amazon a bookstore? Like, yes, they are technically a bookstore, but they knew a long time ago that wasn't really what it was about. So I think that it's going to be very interesting in two ways. Number one is to run buildings safer, less expensive, and more environmentally sound using technology. So we're very excited about we're very, very excited about that. Just being able to respond very quickly to what people need. But I think that there's something more interesting that's coming down the pike, which is taking the data of a place and combining it with the place. So, for example, when people buy commercial real estate, they get a deed, they get maybe a box of files, but like you lose all of that information about the tenants and their needs and their wants and what's happened and the preventative maintenance and the history of the equipment. It's gone. So if we could combine data with things, we make both of them more valuable.
And, coming back, and I know we do talk a lot about the pandemic, it's a big deal for a lot of people, but, utilizing that information, it creates that safety feel. It creates a comfort to be able to have these tenants, have these people go back into the space. And that is the key. So if we're collecting data and it's actually helping us do just that, why wouldn't we want to do that, right?
I think we should. I mean, people, when I show people the amount of data that we collect and everything, they always say, oh, what if you get sued? Someone will see all of that stuff. But really what we want to do is we want to prevent accidents. We want to prevent infections. We want to prevent workplace injuries primarily. Also interruptions, not as important as injuries. And using technology, it's just a spectacular way of doing that.
It really is. It really is. So I always talk about, this question, what is the pandemic pivot, whether it's for business or whether it's for your personal side? What have you done differently when you weren't doing it before the pandemic, but now you're doing it today? What do you have for us for that?
Well, I think the primary thing is we're spreading out more, is that we used to look for density, in office, density in living spaces, and now we need some privacy. So ironically, we're going back. We did this big shift into the urban markets, which was really exciting, and I love cities. And now we're shifting back to the suburbs. I think that that's going to be a 30-year pivot. Is that in the 70s, we went to the suburbs because people didn't feel safe in the cities. I think we're seeing the same thing. It's just a different threat.
For sure. So any other projects that you're working on for the future that you want to discuss?
Well, we're very excited about food. I think it's really missing from the office environment. When you think about food service in a hotel, like any decent hotel has food available all the time. And then you go into an office and you have to get these delivery services, or you've got to go somewhere. So we've started introducing food on demand into the office environment and getting involved in restaurants. We bought what I can genuinely say is the best vegan restaurant in Los Angeles, the Little Pine. So we're really learning about it, and then we started building kitchens in our office buildings, which we're running ourselves. We think that it's just so important to control the availability and the price and the speed at which food is delivered, that we're really going to move the needle with that. So that's a big focus. And people always, like when I say, oh, we're running restaurants, they say, oh, the restaurant business, it's so hard. Well, like, yes, everything's hard, but I think it's a requirement.
Well, and I know when I worked in an office setting and lunchtime came around and I was super busy, the last thing I wanted to do is stop what I was doing and say, oh my gosh, I'm going to go get something to eat. Chances are I'd have to walk or jump in the car or whatever. But to have that here delivered for me so I don't have to skip a beat, I'm going to be more productive that way. And I'm going to be happy because I'm fed, right?
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about it is that the big surprise was dinner to go, is that people, the whole family could look at a menu, they could order food, it goes to the person who's working in the building, and they walk home and dinner is served. So that turned out to be a big, a big use case for it, and something that really helps the people who are working there.
Well, I'm quite impressed with the fact that you see a pain point, like I said, and you put something toward it to make it right, and using technology to do so. And I know in your family, you're not the only one doing this with innovation and finding these pain points to solve. Who else in your family's taken that on?
So my son Henry did a great project. Is that when COVID started and the kids were in virtual school, the teachers who had young kids had a problem because the kids would come and interrupt the class. And there was nothing you could do. You couldn't send them to a babysitter. You can't lock them in a room. Sometimes these kids were very young, and even kids in high school wanted their parents' attention from time to time. So my son created a system called Student Teacher that allowed the teachers to book high school students to entertain or tutor the kids online. And it really fixed a problem. And he was able to roll it out in California and in New York, and ended up, with the news crews in our living room, the front page of the paper, and live with Kelly and
Ryan, right?
And Ryan, yes. So he moves a lot faster than me. It took me 10 years and I still haven't been on television.
Well, I got to hand it to both of you because, there are so many times where you're thinking that you see a problem and you want to fix it and you figure out how to fix it, but you never do anything about that. You never move forward to say, let's do it. And I love the fact that you both did that and you're doing it today.
It's a lot of fun. I'm very proud of it.
A lot of fun for sure. Well, we can't wait to see what's next on tap for both of you.
Me neither.
It's going to be exciting. It's an exciting ride here. Mr. Andrew Segal, I am so excited that you were on the show today. We really appreciate it. And thanks for highlighting the future innovations in technology.
Thank you for having me.
Love to have you on the show again soon.
Interested in being part of our show or advertising on our podcast? Contact us at info@fifthgenmedia.com for more information. We'd love to be a part of your success.